What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the Off the Bench Podcast Network. Before we get to today's show, let us take a moment to pass along a reminder, a safety message here during this holiday season. And before we get to today's show, let's take a moment to remind ourselves of that with our special guest, Lieutenant Jim Betancourt. With the introduction, I pass it off to my co-host and friend, Raider Jim Martinez. Take it away, Raider Jim.
Thank you, First Report. Yeah, this is Raider Jim from the Off the Bench podcast. Everything we talk about football, basketball, gaming, how to make your bets, place your bets. And the one thing we always keep in mind is being responsible at everything we do. And what better way to introduce a very good friend of mine, Lieutenant Jim Betancourt from the California Highway Patrol, to talk about the holiday responsibilities of making sure when we're out on the road that we exercise great caution at all times. Officer Jim, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you extending the time. And please give us some of your information and tips that we can follow.
Well, I thank you guys very much for having me on this show. In my plus 21 years of being a California Highway Patrol officer, I can tell you, unfortunately, I've seen more blood, guts, gore, and grime than any one man should have to see in their entire life. And which is a common theme in a lot of these crashes is unfortunately driving under the influence of alcohol. Especially during the holiday season, we see a lot of crashes that involve DUI, whether that's alcohol, prescription drugs, you name it, that's the type of stuff that we see. So what we ask is that people act responsibly, designate a driver, have a plan before you go out and drink and drive, or just don't drink and drive, period. Make sure you have a person that you can call, or an Uber or whatever. Nowadays, there's no excuse for driving under the influence of alcohol. Unfortunately, over the last several years, in 2018, over 3,800 people lost their lives because of DUI collisions in the state of California. Over Christmas period last year, we arrested 271 people statewide for that. And let me just say this, DUI is not a victimless crime, right? People die, people get hurt, people's lives change forever. And we don't want you, anybody listening to this podcast, to be a statistic. We want you to celebrate the holidays with your friends and family. We want you to be able to have a good time. We are in unprecedented times, and we understand that there's a lot of stressed out people. There's a lot of things that are happening right now throughout the state, but we want you to be safe. We want you to have a plan. We want you to enjoy the holidays. Don't drink and drive. Don't put yourself in a situation that's going to change your life forever. And believe me when I say this, if you get in a crash after drinking and driving, if you hurt somebody, if you kill somebody, your life and the life of your family, friends, coworkers will be forever changed, and it's just not worth it.
Thank you very much. And yeah, so for everybody who listens to the Off the Bench podcast, if you want sound advice, if you want a sure bet, you just got the best betting tip of the holiday season and throughout the year. Don't drink, don't drive. Keep your money in your pocket. Don't give it to a bail bondsman. Don't give it to your insurance company. Officer Jim, thank you so much. I did want to ask one question about this. Do you know, given the situation with COVID, et cetera, are they still going to have some of the free programs that are out there, like transit with the free trolley rides, some of the Ubers, the taxis, the tow services?
So I'm not sure if that's still going to be in effect. I can tell you AAA right now is not providing rides to their members if they call them on the side of the road because of the COVID protocols. So a lot of those free services, with the exception of Uber that are still in service, and Lyft, are going to be shut down. So you may be limited in the amount of options that you have during this holiday season, which makes it more important than ever to have a plan and to not put yourself in a situation where you hurt or kill somebody. In fact, unfortunately, last night we just had a Caltrans contractor killed on the 94.
I saw that.
By a DUI driver. And it just really brings home, so close to the holidays, how somebody's life can change in an instant, and it's just not worth it.
So folks, there you have it again. Officer Jim, thank you so much for the time, the opportunity, and the information. listeners, don't bet against the house on this one. Okay. Listen to what Officer Jim has to say.
Definitely. And thank you, Lieutenant Betancourt, and all that you do, and all of your the men and women who are there to keep us safe every single day. And once again, I echo everything. Look, Lyft and Uber, there is no excuse. If you can afford to go out and get drunk, you can afford your $20 ride home. So make no excuses, be safe, and most importantly, enjoy the holidays. So once again, from all of us here at the Off the Bench Podcast Network and the CHP, have a happy and safe
Happy holidays, everybody.
and a happy new year. What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the Off the Bench Podcast Network. It is time for the 11th episode of Two Bs on a Pod. Myself is the first B, Brandon First, at First Report FERST on Twitter, and of course, my co-host, Brandon Lupian. You can find him at Portland76er on Twitter. Happy belated Merry Christmas, even though we were in contact yesterday, but Merry Christmas to all our listeners as well, and to you as well.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you and to all our listeners. Happy holidays, and looking forward to New Year's, actually. I'm really looking forward to New Year's Eve, because
I think
that's everyone's sentiment across this world, is looking for a new 2021.
Yes,
right?
We need to. I don't think we've ever been so ready to. When the first week or two of January, when you're writing the date out or you're writing checks out, whatever that is, maybe it's 2020. I don't think anybody's going to get that mixed up. I think everyone's going to be fully aware that it is finally 2021, and hopefully that means a little bit more normalcy. But speaking of normalcy, it is Saturday, and it is time to get to really the top sports stories of the week here on this podcast network. This is the only show that we pretty much put an umbrella on everything. A lot of our other shows are, sport based, NFL, horse racing, college basketball. This is the only one that we, put an umbrella on everything. So as usual, we will get started with our individual teams. Coach was nice enough last week to let me go first because, the Eagles did get one on the Saints, but we are about 12 hours removed from the Alvin Kamara show. That was just absolutely insane. One of the best stats I saw was Ezekiel Elliott has 5 touchdowns this season. Alvin Kamara has 6 touchdowns in the 3-hour window on Christmas Day, when most of us were probably looking for naps. Alvin Kamara was just dominating. So, Coach, without further ado, what were your thoughts on, obviously, Kamara, but really the Saints finally, I think, putting themselves like, hey, look, if the Packers stumble, we'll take number 1. But if we have to be the number 2 seed, we will, and we're ready for it.
Seeing the offensive outburst, first off, I think I was more excited about, because after that first 3.5 quarters of last week's game against KC, everyone was questioning Drew. And, I think everyone was questioning Drew without realizing this guy's missed how many games, how many weeks, recovering from a rib injury that he's still protecting. But just to see him being able to sling the ball the way he was, deliver it with the accuracy is getting closer than what it was last week. The timing between him and all these new receivers, except for Emmanuel Sanders, is there. So the offensive explosion, I was like excited about. Yeah, Kamara probably accounted for about 60% of it. I think I saw they're mentioning Alvin Kamara 36. Minnesota Vikings 33.
Yeah.
So, I was really excited to see the offensive explosion. I was really worried about our defense. As ranked as high as it is, they just haven't been producing it, lately. And then we lose Quan Alexander for the rest of the year. Horrible blow. The big victory, Alvin Kamara's stats are really masking the loss of Quan Alexander, because they traded for this guy midseason with the San Francisco 49ers. They were talking about, this is another dynamic linebacker alongside Demario Davis. that could propel us to the Super Bowl. And he's been making plays. He's always around the ball. He's picked up a couple of fumbles the last couple of weeks. He's forced a fumble the last couple of weeks. He's has a knack as a playmaker. Um, and he's been showing the kind of player he was, with San Francisco and prior. So it's unfortunate, the loss of him, along with the loss of Mike Thomas, who will be back for the playoffs. But dude, it's like the inconsistencies. It's like what else is gonna to lead up to a run? Like Troy Aikman was like, if any time's the time now to like zone in and focus on making that Super Bowl run and lining everything up, like it's time for the Saints, like now. Um, Especially coming off that loss to KC, realizing, hey, we matched up almost point for point, it's kind of encouraging. But then you see the losses, the individual losses or the individual battles you lose with injuries. It's kind of like, dude, like here we go again. Like right when we think we have something going, boom. So that's a little discouraging, but man, like we're talking Wednesday and I'm hooting about the Breeze and it staying under. They smashed that over under line. I mean, they were in the 80s, close to 90 points, and the over under was 52. And I thought 52 was still high. But again, like I said, Zimmer, and I could probably make a case for what I said on Wednesday about exactly why it's gonna go over, because Zimmer and Dalvin Cook and even Kirk Cousins. I mean, I didn't realize, I was looking at what Kirk Cousins did all season. He's having a pretty good year.
Yeah.
But because he's having to chuck it, because they're always playing from behind, but the numbers are there, So offensively, they did some really dynamic things with Dalvin Cook. And he's a dynamic runner once he finds open space. And it looked early on like he could tell from the first 4 possessions. I was like, it's going over. I was like, it's gonna go over.
Yeah, I had put the bet in for the over, and I think we got out of the first quarter. It was, I think, 20-14 or something like that. It was like, okay, I'm feeling good. But
real good.
Obviously, the Vikings, when you just kind of blindly look at the Mike Zimmer Vikings, the first thing you want to say is, okay, well, that defense is going to be good, or at the very least physical, and they're going to keep your team in the game. Well, that's not the case, obviously, yesterday, and really hasn't been the case this season, hence why they are 6-9 and will not be participating in the playoffs. They had a hard road to get through, even if somehow, some way they beat the Saints. But
yeah,
I was impressed with the Saints defense. I know the last couple weeks have not exactly been the banner type stuff for the Saints. The Eagles got them with those dual 100-yard rushers, but I still think that was a bit. I go back, that was almost 3 or 4 weeks of that defense kind of in a question mark. They didn't know what the hell the offense was going to do. And week 13, week 14, that it usually isn't the case. It's kind of an early season. Hey, how does this offense run now? They had to do 4 weeks in a row of figuring out how to break down an offense. And then obviously the cherry on top was Patrick Mahomes trying to figure that might have been the most straightforward one, because they knew what the Chiefs were going to do. Not the easiest by any stretch, but they knew what the Chiefs were going to do. They got punched in the mouth early. I think it looked like it was, the Saints obviously threw the gauntlet down saying, look, if you want to beat us, you're going to have to put up 40, 50 points. And there was just a couple little misses from Kirk Cousins. There was a crossing route where Thielen was open, excuse me. But I don't know if it was Justin Jefferson or Johnson. He's the other crosser, and he actually runs into the defender. Completely, incidental. It's not pass interference, but just little things like that. If he goes to Thielen instead of the guy who fell, obviously hindsight 2020, I get that. But those are the little things for Kirk Cousins I think he needs to work on. I go back to last week when Justin Jefferson's yelling at him to throw the ball, Kirk, throw the ball. little things like that. If you plant the seed that, hey, maybe why did Stephon Diggs want out of here? Why does Thielen every 3 weeks scream at the quarterback? Well, here we are. But for the Saints, bringing it back to really the team that's going to be a factor going forward.
Yeah, they eliminated the Vikings moving
Yeah.
forward. So.
And that's, I mean, house money when you can have Drew Brees, who I think he's still getting there. I think even if they have the 2 seed wrapped up and there's nothing to play for, I think you have to start Drew Brees, get him rolling. And to be fair, outside of the weather situation, I think it's good that the Saints don't get a bye. Right. Outside of the fact that they'll have to go to Lambeau, that's another story, but we'll get to that if we get to that. But I think they need to be out there. They need to get Drew Brees as many snaps as possible. And I will also say this. I didn't think I would ever say this season, but Jameis Winston staying healthy is very important for this team because they can use Taysom Hill the way they want to use Taysom Hill, because that's how I knew Jameis was playing, was that first like quarterback sweep. And I went, oh, they let him take that hit. And they immediately showed Jameis Winston on the sideline, like, okay, he's playing today. So it's kind of odd that your backup quarterback might be that, but I think it opens the offense up.
Absolutely.
And hats off to Taysom Hill. This guy's a professional. Yeah. He's could probably make the case that, hey, I could maybe start for 5 to 10 teams, but he's saying, you know what, I want to play here. And if I got to sit for a couple years behind Drew, I will. What a professional. I think the Saints are in good hands when Drew does retire, which I'll tell you what, I'm past 30. I've never got past 40, but everything that was when I was in my early 20s is a lot more difficult in my early 30s. So I can only imagine broken ribs in your early 40s is not as easy as it was maybe at Purdue.
11 of them true too, yeah. 11 of them. But, like I mentioned on Wednesday, it without Jameis as the backup against KC, it certainly, and it was evident, and they even announced it on the air last night, how much more of a weapon they're able to use, scheme Taysom out. And I'm glad you mentioned Jameis, because Jameis came in this offseason with a lot of baggage, a lot of negative baggage, rightfully so. I'm not condoning his actions, rightfully so. But if you see him, right? If you see him, and if you've read up on him, like I have, as soon as like volunteer OTA started, and it was like he was the first name that all the articles would talk about how engaged he's been. You would hear quotes about Sean Payton saying, this guy is legit. This guy is doing everything we ask him. He's doing some really good things. He's coming in the best shape ever. All these little things, where they weren't really talked about in seasons past with Jameis. But then they show him, like you said, Taysom gets that sweep, and then they show Jameis. And Jameis is engaged. He's got the pad, he's got the notepad, right? And he's having a very engaging conversation with the referee about a call, and and it's not like over the top, boisterous, like jerkish, right? And then you see him engaging with the assistant on the sidelines, and then he's sitting with Drew and he's studying what they're observing. And I've seen that multiple times throughout the entire season when they flash to him. And I don't want to say it's like the camera or whoever looking to pick a negative sequence of Jameis, right? But it always seems to like flash to him, especially when it's Tampa Bay. It's flash to him when something, like if they're looking for a smirk, or they're looking for something negative. And he has been nothing, from what I've observed and what I've read, nothing but the ultimate like teammate. He signed a 1-year contract. He knows what's at stake. I mean, you get through that rookie contract, you're a free agent. Your team that drafted you 1 overall brings in the second best quarterback ever. And your like career's up in limbo.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was contacted by anybody else. You know, I mean, geez, there's a number of teams that could use the talents of a Jameis Winston.
Oh yeah.
A number of them.
I think both New York teams would check that box. I think there's probably a team in Dallas that would like to have the weapon that is Jameis Winston, and the negativity part of it, 100%. And that's all media, all everything. I think I kind of look at it like, if Jameis Winston was passing out crab legs in front of Publix, we would have never known about it. Now I know that's not the case. I understand that, but that will stick with him. He was an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want the newspapers in this country to be following me at 18, 19. And I don't even know if I want them to be following me around now. So yeah, the negativity factor, but it's how you deal with it. Obviously here in San Diego, we've had Ryan Leaf. And that was, I don't think it was ever a talent question. I don't think anybody ever looked and said, wow, Ryan Leaf just isn't very good. It was, wow, will he shut his mouth, or will he understand that he's a rookie, or will he understand that this isn't Washington State? And no, he never did. And it obviously cost him. So for Jameis, at least and now Jameis wasn't on the Ryan Leaf level. Ryan Leaf was a special case, but in the case of, okay, my draft team doesn't believe in me, whether they bring in Breeze or not. The Buccaneers didn't believe in Jameis, takes his bit of humble pie, and then goes and learns under, probably the best player coach there is. And the way I think the draft has set up, you're going to have the number one team, which we would expect to be Jacksonville, or just for the sake of argument, we'll say the Jets. But one of those teams will get Trevor Lawrence. A lot of draft experts don't believe the next quarterback will be taken until double digits.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of needs. And when you look at mock drafts now, it's hard to even place these teams, but a lot of the big boards, when they say like the actual rank of players, not need, but I believe Justin Fields or
Zach Wilson.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Wherever you look, but you'll see them 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you're right. They're probably going to go number 4, number 5, but I don't think the Jets are going to take a quarterback at number 2. And that opens things up. Obviously the Carson Wentz situation, but Jameis Winston could be a really cheap option. You give a call to the people in New Orleans, just, hey, how was he this year? And I think we're both on the same page that he'll get glowing remarks unless we miss something.
Exactly.
And I think that's what teams want to hear. If, okay, this guy sucked it up and now he's going to come here to Jacksonville or the Jets or wherever. I really do think Jameis Winston has the opportunity. This is a guy who throws for 30 touchdowns a year. Now, don't look at the interception column, but that was pre-LASIK. I'm really excited to see him post-LASIK. But Jameis Winston, kind of turning his things around. Hopefully he does get a chance to start. Hopefully not with the Saints though, because I don't want to see Drew go down or Taysom, because if that happens, that would be really bad. But moving on to the Eagles, and boy, big game tomorrow against the Dallas Cowboys. A situation for the Eagles where not only is it possible for them to win the NFC East, but it might be considered probable at this point, because the situation in Washington with Alex Smith being questionable and Dwayne Haskins, midweek or last weekend's, stripper party at his girlfriend's birthday, that's a big question mark as well. That was something that was handled internally, apparently. A lot of question marks for Washington. If Washington defeats Carolina on Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles will be eliminated from the NFC East competition. Also, obviously, if they lose against the Cowboys. However, what I expect to happen, I expect the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, and I do like the Panthers to beat Washington. That would then set up week 17. I think they would flex this in too as a nice little FU to the football world for one last thing for 2020, but actually that would be 2021. So we'll hopefully flip it over. But anyways, it will be Washington football team versus Philadelphia Eagles. Winner wins the NFC East. And I said it, pretty much the minute after the the Eagles tied with the Bengals, and it looked at how bad the East was. I said the Eagles are going to win this division at 6-9-1, and if that goes the way I just said it will be 6-9-1. A lot of question marks. We're not facing. I don't even remember the kid's name who we faced earlier in the season. The quarterback out of James Madison. We do get Andy Dalton. Face Andy Dalton for the Cowboys. This is going to be a tough game because not only is it a rivalry game, but the Cowboys are also in the same boat. The Cowboys could possibly make the playoffs. So this is a look. Yes, NFC East. We had our movie reference extravaganza on Wednesday, but this is the Sharknado, folks. A lot more people watch Sharknado than whatever won Best Picture that year. So, we're kind of a fan of sloppy, weird stuff like that. And I'll continue to say, only two teams with under 500 records have made the playoffs. They both won their first game. So we'll see what happens on the field. Jalen Hurts looking like a stud. There are little things he needs to work on. Obviously, the offensive coordinator has probably a full list, but just holding the ball a little too long. Believe me, Carson Wentz checked all those boxes as well, but also in the read option game, he needs to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just make that decision quicker. There are little too many times you get stuck. You're going to fumble the ball in those situations, or that defender rolls through. He's just going to slap in the middle and try and catch. You have to be a little more decisive. And if you know what, hey, you made the wrong read and we lost a yard, I'd rather that than a fumble that changes the momentum of the game. Really, when you look at Jalen Hurts as a rookie, you're kind of nitpicking because he's done really everything you've wanted him to. And he's also changed himself. Well, at least somewhat changed himself. It's only been 2 games, but obviously against the Saints, relied on those legs a lot. Not so much last week. And obviously Arizona did get the job done. But for the Eagles, if they can go out and score with most teams, they'll be just fine. And I think Dallas is definitely one that they can score with. And I think Washington is definitely another team they can score with. Now, when we get to the playoffs, that's another story. That'll be for another day. But I really think the Eagles are going to do it again. And they're going to go out. It will be a shock of the world to beat the Cowboys and then beat the Redskins. Now, obviously, you need the Panthers to handle their business, but that's what I expect. 6-9-1. Will be taking on more than likely the second place team in the NFC West. We'll see how that goes, but you give me the Rams. I'm just going to watch the Rams Jets film all week to see how that goes. But really excited to see the, at least we got some games to watch. At least for the Eagles fans, something to get excited for. Now, it's kind of odd that we're actually closer to the number 1 pick than we are to the number 1 seed. But hey, you know what? It's 2020, folks. So really excited to see what the Eagles can do next week, or tomorrow, I should say.
So I'm well aware of your infatuation of Justin Jefferson. Do the Eagles pass on a wide receiver like Devontae Smith or not?
I feel like they have to. And I don't want to say pass on him. I think they've made their bed. This offensive line needs help. Okay. I can't sit here in the first round and make a case for another wide receiver to be taken. I just now, if the best tackles and offensive linemen are off the board, okay. But for me, I don't not like Jalen Reagor. I think Jalen Reagor can do things, and he's going to possibly be a very good wide receiver, but Justin Jefferson just broke Randy Moss's rookie record. Yeah. I mean, the defense rests. So I'm a big fan of taking the best player available. And if that is the best player available, then go for it. But we need an offensive line, or we need at least to start building an offensive line, and building it in the 6th and 7th rounds with old rugby players like Jordan Mailata or, Matt Pryor. I'm not a fan of that, but you bring in more weapons for Jalen Hurts, I won't hate it. That's for sure. I mean, I'd love to get a guy like Jalen Waddle or something like that. Just an absolute speed freak, even though he's kind of Jalen Reagor plus. But that would just be my thought.
So since Let me ask you this. Since you brought up Jalen Hurts, are you naming him 2021 season starter?
No, I can't right now. No.
Okay.
Plenty of different reasons. Obviously, the main one is the Carson Wentz contract.
Yep.
It's almost untradeable the way it is right now, because it is actually, he hasn't even started to get into that extension. I believe it's $50 million next year is owed to him against the cap. Very difficult. I also do expect possibly there to be a coaching change. I don't think it was as obvious as it was a couple weeks ago, but if that is the case, I think it's an open competition. I don't think any coach comes in and says, oh, don't show me Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts is my guy. I think it will become an open competition. And I would like, now the bet has already been made, I don't think they could do this, but I would love to see a bit of a Drew Brees, Taysom Hill type thing. And I know they're different quarterbacks, but a 60-40, and that's a bit of a pipe dream now that Carson's pretty much been benched and he wants out and stuff like that. If the Eagles can get a first or a second round pick for Carson Wentz, you got to take it. And that is also me saying that I expect Carson Wentz to succeed later on in his career. This isn't a guy that, had a couple good games and that was it. I mean, he was an MVP candidate. And then even the year after, he played better or he played well. He's definitely regressed. There's no doubt about it. I'd also like to see what he could do behind a competent offensive line. The offensive line the last couple weeks has been amazing, which is great, but they were so bad when Carson Wentz was in there. So 2021, that quarterback controversy is going to be, I think it's going to make the Nick Foles, Carson Wentz post Super Bowl quarterback controversy look like, Sesame Street. I think this next quarterback controversy will be Jerry Springer. Yeah. And I'm kind of excited for it. I'm not going to lie. May the best man win. I love Carson, but I love the Eagles more. So whoever makes this team win, or whoever gives this team a better chance of winning, let's do it. And as I say all the time, it's not my money. So if you flush down 50 million down the toilet for Carson Wentz, hey, not my money. So
one last question.
Yep.
I've read some negative comments about Carson, about him questioning him being a good teammate. True or not?
I'm going to throw this out there and say that I don't think anybody, including the writer of that article, truly knows. I think there's about 65 men in that locker room who know what Carson does. I don't have a problem with Carson saying, I want out or I want to be traded. Someone asked him a question and he answered honestly. Yeah. If you go to a job and you are the head honcho and someone comes in and you've been demoted and another company calls you up and what? Oh no, nope, I have to stay here because no. Now in football, I'll tell you what, I saw Carson Wentz, first guy out there to meet that offense when they score a touchdown. He's not sitting there sulking on the sidelines. He's up there, he's cheering. Is he happy about it? I highly doubt it. I wouldn't want him to be happy, but I really do think this is a guy that wants to see the Eagles succeed while he's in uniform. But at the same time, when the season ends, if they look at him and say, we're going forward with Jalen Hurts, he's going to go look for another uniform. And you know what? That's his right.
Right.
Everyone can have their own opinion about things. Like I said, there's 65, 70 guys in that locker room that truly know. I know what my hope and my assumption would be. But for Carson, I wish him the best of luck. Hopefully it's with Philadelphia. Like I said, I love Carson. He's my screensaver. But I would really like to see the Eagles win another Super Bowl. And if Jalen Hurts is the guy to do that, then give him the keys to the castle. But
there it is.
Yeah, that's going to be a rough offseason story for the Eagles, but hopefully it'll be after another NFC lease title after all those caveats. But moving on, keeping it in the football family, but we're going to drop it down to college. This past week, the college football playoff was announced, and look, it's 2020. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. I'll be honest, by far the least amount of college football I watched all year. Or no, I'm sorry, not all year, but just in my life. It just didn't seem right. It didn't feel the same. I watched USC a little bit, but even that didn't feel right. But anyways, New Year's Day, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. On the East Coast, everything else in between, you'll have Alabama taking on Notre Dame in a very, very odd Rose Bowl in Arlington, Texas. I'm surprised they still call it the Rose Bowl, but I'm sure City or whoever was the sponsor made sure it was still the Rose Bowl. But that game will be in Arlington, Texas, because of the COVID restrictions here in California. And then at 5 p.m., you'll have the other semifinal with pretty much them again. Clemson taking on Ohio State. Very interesting. I was looking over the lines today. Alabama, not a big surprise. They're 22-point favorites currently. But what is a surprise is it actually only started at 7.5 for Alabama. That's pretty crazy. And then the other line, Clemson, that game is right now Clemson 7.5, and that one started at -20 for Clemson. So as I told Coach Lupian before we went on the air, it seems like the bettors have fixed the lines for the odds makers, because it seemed like they put the wrong number in the wrong column because they're all backwards. But I really think just my thought process, knowing that, I haven't watched a ton of college football, it's about Bama Clemson. Bama Clemson 8? I feel like it's like a Rocky saga at this point.
We know who runs what are they called, the FBS, and that's the SEC. So whatever way they could make their money and make sure everyone else doesn't, they're gonna do so.
Yep.
That's why definitely not next year. Well, maybe we won't see an 8-team playoff.
Yeah.
Because there are teams like Cincinnati that are wondering, what do we got to do? And then there's laws about monopolizing things in this country. It just doesn't seem to include the SEC or the NCAA for that matter. So those people that are in charge gets to see the matchup that they all want to see.
Yeah. Especially
especially with Trevor Lawrence at the helm over at Clemson, Dabo Swinney, a former Saban, assistant, Mac Jones, another possible first-round draft pick quarterback. I mean, there's first-round picks across both teams, and it's like, let's highlight that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I will say these games, piqued interest. And the podcast will be out by the time this game starts tonight, but I hopefully get the video out. Coastal Carolina and Liberty tonight is going to be the best bowl game of the season.
Yes.
And I am all for it. I can't wait for that one. That might be the most 2020 thing. If you would have told me January 1st, 2020, that the day after Christmas, I would be looking forward to Liberty Coastal Carolina more than the national championship semifinals, I'd say, wow, it's going to be an interesting year, and I wouldn't even be able to scratch the surface. But that's a game that I'm really excited to watch. A lot of teams, including USC, San Diego State, opted out. Boston College, I've talked about. They were actually kind of the first one, at least that I heard about, that really kind of said, you know what, we're going to leave money on the table to take care of our student athletes, which, once again, you always hear teams talking about that, but you don't actually see them doing it. That was the case for Boston College. We'll keep it here. We'll actually talk a little baseball now, little free agent talk with the Padres. Obviously, free agency, I would expect, the first part of January. That's where I think we're going to start seeing at least some maybe contracts being offered, or people signing. Usually most baseball players don't deal with too many things until after Christmas, spend their time with family over the holidays, and then kind of get ready to roll. But a lot of names are obviously out there. We're just going to do a little bit of I'll throw a name out there, see what coach thinks. Coach will do the same, vice versa. We'll do that for a couple. So I'll start it. Sure. And I'm going to go with the one that I think is on the tip of everybody's tongue, and it's Trevor Bauer. Thoughts?
As much as I like what Trevor Bauer's career has been, some of the stuff that he's really spoken about might be kind of the concern I have. And this is something that you brought up. Do you really want a Mackenzie Gore, a Luis Patino, a Chris Paddock looking up to a guy like Trevor Bauer, as outspoken as he is in regards to his own organization or whoever he's pitching for, or Major League Baseball or a rival team, you know? And it's like the numbers speak volumes, but character speaks even more massive volumes for myself. And you know, and I don't want to sound like I'm taking a negative shot at Trevor Bauer, because some of the stuff that he does tweet out is pretty. It's honest and it's accurate, right? It's honest and it's accurate. But leading the younger troops looking up ahead, maybe not for me. Money wise, that's the other thing. It's going to take a huge chunk of a payroll, especially looking at San Diego Padres as still a mid-market team, even though they're spending a whole lot more than seasons past. And, you know, as fans, you could appreciate what they're spending right now.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the more ironic things that I think only for those 3 days before Bryce Harper signed, that the San Diego Padres had the richest contract in professional sports.
Right.
Absolutely ridiculous. Sorry, anyways.
Who would have thought it in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So Trevor Bauer would be a huge addition to the rotation, performance-wise. Financially, probably not. Leadership wise, probably not. So there's two negatives versus the one I gotta pass on.
Yep, I agree. Really, just for the things you said, too much.
Well, I said a lot of things you've said in the
past. Well, another thing, I'll take it a step further, you know, with the money thing. As I've said on this show and the change up, and really anybody who will listen, the only person who I believe should be paid this offseason is Fernando Tatis. And I kind of backed off from that a bit because, look, you know, I don't think the Padres are going to line up to give another $300 million contract or whatever it will take after a year of no fans. But that has to be a top priority. And I feel like if you do sign Trevor Bauer, that cuts into it, whatever opportunities you have. I will say, hearing a lot of rumblings that Trevor Bauer's, you know, might be signing 1-year deals for the next 3 or 4 years. He is a guy who's, I don't know if this was real or not, but he said he made a bet with one of his buddies that they would kick him in the man area if he ever signed a long-term contract. So, I mean, I don't know. Obviously that's not, you know, hard-hitting reporting here, but just something I saw. Trevor Bauer would be, I think there are better options in better situations. And I agree with you on that one.
You know, there's huge advantages to the one year contract, you know, because you know you're going to get the best performance for the next biggest 1-year contract the following season, you know, and you're kind of like dictating things on your terms versus, you know, the rest of the league, you know, and having to do that. And that's the independence that sometimes scares people away about Trevor Bauer.
Yep.
But okay, I got a name. Trevor Rosenthal.
I love it. These are the guys that I think are, I don't want to say cheap. That sounds bad, but affordable. How about that? Or it won't break the bank. It won't stop Fernando Tatis from being signed next year because they did whatever they did with Trevor Rosenthal. There are very few players that can come to the Padres and play 20 games, have absolutely no fans, no interaction with fans face to face, and turn into a fan favorite just because of his stuff on Twitter and Lolitas and, you know, Will Myers telling all the new guys, just go on Twitter and talk shit about Mexican food in San Diego, and that'll get the fans going. And, you know, it was just so perfect, fantastic interaction. Thank you, with the fans. And to take it a step further, he was pretty damn good on the field too. This is a situation where Kirby Yates, obviously still a question mark. The bullpen of the Padres was a question mark for a long period of time. Trevor Rosenthal was a big part of keeping that or bringing that back and getting it under control.
Yes.
I love it. My only question is, do they get outbid When you have teams like the Red Sox, the Yankees,
Astros.
Astros, who are in the market for relievers,
Yeah.
even with the Padres being a mid-market and kind of working themselves up, they are not on the Red Sox, Yankee, Astro financial level. So it's going to be difficult, but I really hopefully it comes down to, $1 million or $2 and Trevor Rosenthal goes, you know what?
I'll give him the San Diego discount.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love
And now don't get me wrong. Like, if someone offers me an extra $1 million to go to Antarctica, I'll probably do it. But when you're getting a $6 million deal, what's 500,000? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just how my thinking is. I think he had a lot of fun here. And also too, you have to imagine that the outside of the Dodgers scaring you away, the Padres are one of the top teams, or like the hot up and coming teams.
Trending forward.
Yeah, 100%. If they're a stock, their IPO is through the roof. So I would love to see Rosenthal come back. Like I said, I just hope that the market doesn't price him out of the Padres.
All right, I like this. Who's next?
Yeah, I got one for you.
Yeah.
Let's go with, and this isn't a free agent. I'm going to throw this one out there because I saw it would be a trade.
Okay.
Yu Darvish.
Ooh, I for some reason I knew that name was going to come up, and I knew you were going to bring him up before I got a chance to. I think what I've seen as far as the names being exchanged for him are a little bit too pricey for me. You does come with a really controllable contract, and what I don't like about that is the exchange of players for a controllable contract versus a productive player. He's going to be productive, but when I see the number of the prospect numbers, Ryan Weathers was one guy. That's huge to me. I mean, they're talking 3 guys within the top 15 players, projected. I think Patino's name might have been in that. Or no, sorry, Morahone's name.
Oh man,
It was
still
Morahone. It was Weathers. Those not only are those 2 of the top 10 pitching prospects, but they're 2 of the top 10 lefty pitching prospects in our organization, where you never have enough lefties, whether that's in the starting rotation or in the bullpen. And I can't think of the third name. That's Reggie Lawson. AJ Preller's first ever pick in the Padres organization, who is coming off Tommy John, but has just electric stuff that he's found a groove throwing it as far as his control. So those are 3 names that I think are 3 names collectively well too much for Yu Darvish controllable contract. Not Yu Darvish the innings pitched, not Yu Darvish the arsenal of pitches he has. Too much stock capital or prospect capital in what's considered a controllable contract, regardless if that contract allows them to sign a Trevor Rosenthal for that $500,000 more to match a certain team. Just looking contract wise, that's a heavy prospect capital for. Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to drop those type of prospects, I call my friends down in Tampa Bay. If I'm giving up 3 of my top 15 pitching prospects and 2 of them are lefties, I'm getting Blake Snell.
Yep.
Big time. And with all due respect to Yu Darvish, he's in his late 30s and he's been inconsistent. This past year was, and when I say inconsistent, I mean wildly inconsistent, to the point where he could look like the greatest pitch you've ever seen to a guy that you would go, man, I might hit 350 off him. So that's what scares me. Short seasons too. It was 60 games. I mean, that's nothing compared to a full baseball season. But what you got a name for me?
No, well, on top of that, this is what I wanted to talk about. You mentioned 60 games and it clicked for me. I remember there was a thought, right? Across Major League Baseball, if not the majority of the starting rotations, every team, arms are not stretched out for what comes ahead. If that's another 60 game season or whether that's a 162 game season, there's a lot of concern um, about arm damage and arm conditioning with this up and coming season. I think one player, a Yu Darvish, a Trevor Rosenthal, doesn't solve
Yeah.
a rotation issue. You mentioned it last year. After I wish we kept Cal Quantrill. I wish we kept a guy like
Yeah.
Cal Quantrill.
I don't think we would have had to throw Mike Clevenger in game
Right.
1 of the Dodgers. And don't get me
Right.
wrong, Cal Quantrill doesn't win
Yeah.
the series for the Padres, but yeah,
No,
Clevenger probably doesn't
but
need Tommy John. 'Cause they
yeah,
don't
but,
know
you know, it talks about our talk about Padres is about the lack of depth in the rotation. Well, you're getting rid of depth. And if you go Yu Darvish and you get rid of 2 lefties that are projected starters, you're removing depth. So it just doesn't work. You know, it doesn't balance out the checks and balances. So
Exactly.
yes, so here's my name. Okay, and it's a name from seasons past.
Oh.
And the reason why I'm going this route is because of the issues with the starting rotation, where I think an emphasis on the bullpen makes it even more highlighted. Brad Hand.
I would like that. I mean, I would if that's really tough. I'm thinking in my head like, oh, I'd take Rosenthal over him, but I don't think I would. I actually think
You can take
I
both.
would.
Why can't you take both?
Well, ideally, yes.
Yeah.
I like Brad Hand. I've always liked Brad Hand. He's one of the few Padre players that they traded away and didn't fall off the face of the earth. He's been a very reliable arm, and what I love about Brad Hand is he's a lefty. That's always a plus, but his windup is very difficult. It's hard to get a read on a pitcher. And when you have a pitcher like that who throws strikes, you might be walking back to the dugout before you have a read on that guy. So I like that a lot. A nice homecoming.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sounds like a plan to me. I would love to get Rosenthal and Hand together and just have them like, hey, you know, it's a lefty heavy lineup late in the game. So you know what, Brad, there's sometimes where the most important 3 outs out of a bullpen won't be in the 9th inning. Sometimes you pull a guy out in the 7th inning with the runner on first and second, and you need a pitch. Go get one of those guys and that's another thing. You'd obviously have to talk to Brad Hand, Trevor Rosenthal about this. Some of these guys, you know, they won't pitch unless it's, oh, I'm only pitching for saves. And I'm not saying that's the case with these guys, but something maybe to ask these guys about. But the last name I'll throw out there for you is one that I brought up, and I think we're keeping it here in the rotation, is Corey Kluber.
Ooh. Bringing back Corey Kluber to his original organization. Coming off injury, no? Didn't finish the season.
Like 2 or 3 years worth of injury, unfortunately.
Yeah, so this is a guy that has to entertain the talk about San Diego discount.
Yep.
And not being able to finish the past 2 seasons discount. That's probably more of a typical AJ Preller move, just like he did with Garrett Richards. Trevor Bauer, I'm more interested to see what he has in the tank on a 1-year lease kind of thing. Does that solve our rotation issues? No, but it adds depth to it. I like Corey Kluber. He's a former Cy Young winner. So you talk about those other intangibles that he brings to the clubhouse that I would have to say are a lot more positive in my mind than Trevor Bauer's.
Yep.
So as far as leadership capabilities and passing along things to guys like a guy that needs to really bounce back like Chris Paddock.
Yeah.
And guys like Mackenzie Gore who should be sponges and Luis Patino who should be sponges and Ryan Weathers, who should be a sponge, and that young core of rotation guys that should be coming up. So yeah, I like Corey Kluber.
Yeah,
Contracts talk, money talks when it
oh
comes
yeah.
to Corey Kluber.
And I
Though.
think
So
it would be a
that's
low risk, high
a
reward
reward.
situation. It'd
Yep.
probably be a very incentive laden contract.
Yep.
I mean, you could maybe even wait till February. If he's not signed, you could possibly get him on a minor league contract. This isn't a guy that people are, pounding down the doors for. But if you can, I mean, his career ERA is in the low threes, playing in the American League, folks. So that kind of just tells you. But yeah, so that was the last name I had. Do you have one more?
I do, and I'm not sure how familiar you might be in regards to him being an option, and that's former Padre farmhand Jose Castillo with the Reds.
Wow, that would be.
And it
That
again would be a trade
Yeah,
by trade, but from what I understand, he's on the market.
yeah. So we talked about you, Darvish, and those three prospects, or those number of prospects you have to do. I would put Jose Castillo. I'd slot him if we're going to give up those prospects. I'd slot him ahead of Darvish in this situation.
I like that.
He's younger.
Mhm.
He's a guy that I go back to it. The Marlins could have had, now Jose Fernandez, rest his soul. That wasn't really his fault, but they could have had Chris Paddock and Jose Castillo. They could have had an outfield of Giancarlo Stanton, Marcelo Zuna, and Christian Yelich. All that they didn't. Whatever, we'll move on. But Jose Castillo is I guess 2020 or new age pitcher where he's just a strikeout guy. He's young. He's controllable, or at least as controllable as you can find right now on the market. I think he would cost a little less than Blake Snell because he's not a lefty. That's kind of that extra. And, Jose Castillo wasn't controversially pulled from Game 6 of the World Series when we all it's so fresh in our minds, right?
Yeah.
That one, actually, I really like that one. If we can get Jose Castillo, the only thing I will say about that, I'd like maybe a little bit more of a veteran presence. Not to say he's like a rookie or anything. He's been in the league for a couple years, but he's not the guy everyone looks at then. I think losing Mike Clevenger, obviously, besides what he can do on the mound, but also what he can do in that clubhouse. You're kind of looking at Dinelson Lamet to be that leader, Chris Paddock to be that leader. Not ideal with that. Could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not in that locker room. They could be fantastic leaders, and I know nothing about it. I like that. I just it's a little too late to add that to my Christmas list, but anyways, Jose Castillo and Friar Brown would be very, very nice, and I have no problem giving up a couple prospects for that. However, Morejon scares me. And scares me in terms of leaving.
Yeah.
I think Adrian Morejon is further along than any of the pitchers.
Yeah.
And you might even want to throw Chris Paddock in there. I think he is a guy that if wherever they put him, I think he would be best suited in the bullpen. But I think he'd be a pretty damn good starter as well. But if they can keep him in the bullpen, he will turn into a lights out closer. I don't want them to get rid of him. But if we do end up getting a Castillo or a Snell, that's fine. I'd rather do the Snell. You send him to the AL East and you only have to worry about him maybe if you make it to the World Series, and that's a problem to have. But keep sending Morejon to the Reds might be a little close to home, but I like Castillo. I would love to see him.
Well, I'm glad we did this because last week we talked a little Sonny Gray. We're adding more names to our conversation. But here's my one issue is, what is this pitching staff's identity? That's kind of like the most bothersome thing to me because you're just gonna go 6 and then start rotating the bullpen. Well, then you better add some depth, right? That's why I mentioned a Brad Hand. That's why I brought up Trevor Rosenthal to shore in that bullpen. But geez, like, we're talking starters. You got to let these guys get stretched out a whole lot, get out of jams a whole lot. And if we're going youth movement, fine, but you got to have some kind of staff identity. And I'm not too sure what it is. I'm really not. Yeah, and unfair because this is Jace Tingler's second season going in. But I think there's been an identity gap with this pitching staff, even when Darren Balsley was our. And I love Darren. I really wish he's still around. But moving forward, where are we at?
Yeah. So last thing we're going to talk about, it's kind of a little teaser right over Coach's shoulder there. San Diego State basketball had a, last week we talked about the BYU loss, took it on the chin despite Matt Mitchell having, a career day. Just couldn't out rebound the big boys from Provo. Well, they had a big test against St. Mary's, one of the best small schools. Well, it was one of the best schools on the West Coast. I'm not even going to put that adjective on there.
Yep.
And San Diego State, possibly their best performance post Steve Fisher, at least against a bigger school. They win 74-59. They have 11 blocks. You have a team that shoots 55%. They shot 41% from three. This was a team that at one point when I first checked the score, because I was at my mom's, so I didn't have CBS Sports Network, but first time I checked the score, it was 32-10. I almost called Google and told them that you need to update your thing. You're showing me a football score or something. They end up dominating St. Mary's and a good St. Mary's team as well, a team that will be up there probably vying for tournament capabilities. My biggest thing for San Diego State in this was the defense, obviously, but the blocks. 11 blocks, and on the other side of that, 0 for St. Mary's. So San Diego State's taking obviously high percentage shots when you shoot 50. If San Diego State shoots 55%, they're taking very high percentage shots. I will throw one, I guess maybe sour note on there. Maybe not sour, but just one thing I'm looking for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I need a little bit more consistency out of Jordan Shackle. And I know he's a jump shooter and things like that happen, but I watched what he did against Arizona State. And he looked like he might be one of the best just pure scorers in basketball. And the last two games, I mean, the game against BYU, I think he had 3 points, maybe 5. I think last night he had 13. Once again, nothing to sneeze at. But when I talked about San Diego State at the start of the year, Jordan Shackle was my number one play. Actually, Mensah was, but my number 2 player to watch was Shackle, because they need Malachi Flynn's production to be picked up by somebody. And I thought it was going to be Jordan Shackle. We saw the Arizona State game, continued to think that. Once again, I'm not, writing a book on Jordan Shackle, sending him away. I just want to see a little bit more consistency. 15 to 20 points a game, every single game. Beautiful. San Diego State will win plenty of games like that. But when you are the number 1 scorer on San Diego State, you need to be there every game. Obviously, Matt Mitchell is not going to drop 35 probably ever again. I mean, I'd love to see it happen, but that was probably a bit of an anomaly. I just want to see a little bit more out of Jordan Shackle, maybe a little bit more consistency. That's what I should say.
That's, that you're asking a lot from a streaky shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to shooting, it's all about rhythm. And it could be micrometers from your elbow being here to your elbow being here, and in game you really don't pay attention to it. But I agree, 15 to 20 for Jordan is right where he needs to be. Matt's going to do what Matt does. Matt was that second guy that did test the NBA waters. My name, and you brought it up last week and you brought it up right now, is going to be Mensah. If Mensah can continue to dominate the defensive rebounding positioning, a defensive rebound stat, contest shots, get some blocks, do all that on the defensive end where his name's not really like called as far as rotation wise. He just got to do his thing. But if he could continue to knock down that 2 to 3 foot little sky hook he has, or hold the ball and wait for that high-low action, it really does spread things outside for our shooters. So if Mensah can continue to be an offensive weapon, whether that's just him touching the ball, whether that's him putting that 2 or 3 foot jumper in, a little hook in, it really does open up a whole lot for the outside guys and the shooters. And then the second name that I like to bring up, because I heard his name multiple times, was Terrell Gomes. Terrell Gomes is starting to get going. And he's able to find himself in open space and working off of that extra pass. Whether that extra pass is coming from down low or whether that's extra pass is coming from the wing, that extra pass and Gomes starting to knock down shots. Gosh, we saw the offensive output against St. Mary's, and that's not a sluggish St. Mary's team.
Yeah.
I've continued to say State's played, other than Gonzaga, the number 2/3 and the 4 teams in the WCC. So it's not like these guys are cakewalks. But Gomes is named multiple times hitting 3-pointers after a season in which he was one of the top 3-point shooters in the nation. Very excited about. And to Jordan's credit, he's one of those guys that's making that extra pass to a guy like Gomes or to a guy like Mitchell, or receiving that pass from a guy like Gomes and a guy like, so that the offensive flow, it's very nice, and I think getting into conference play is really going to dictate the direction we're going to go, because as I'm looking at it, their next game is January 2nd against Colorado State.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have Colorado State 2 days later on the 4th. And then Nevada the 7th and the 9th. So they're doing these series, and we'll see how they're going to be able to adjust matchup-wise and what the other team may do matchup-wise within those 2-game, or 2-day blocks of back-to-back games. So it'll be interesting, to say the least, based on our scheduling goes. But as far as our non-conference schedule, other than St. Catherine's, geez, like, hey, they really put it to the grindstone. And other than the BYU hiccup, which for whatever reason that happens, it happens. Hey, 2020 is ending in a week. So, right.
Well, and also for San Diego State too, they're a lot of their mystique, I guess, or a lot of it is that crowd, is the show. Once again, if you haven't been to Viejas Arena, see a San Diego State game, goodness gracious, get yourself there and enjoy that. But that's obviously not there. They're still doing what they need to do. Obviously, we talked about the hiccup to BYU. I don't think any of us expected, San Diego State to go 30-0 again. But a situation now where, like you said, the schedule, you talked about Colorado State and Nevada, both of those will be at Viejas. 4 of those games will be at Viejas. And then I have the rest of the month. They'll have 2 at Utah State and then 2 at Air Force. Those are going to be very interesting. You're playing at altitude. Air Force is there. What you're going to get from Air Force. You have to defend for about 28 seconds, and they're probably going to get a back cut and hope that someone's down low. And they're going to play defense every single time. Air Force has always been a thorn in San Diego State side, but that is a long ways away from now. Colorado State, Nevada. This is interesting to me because they play them so early in the year. I wonder, if we get to March when we get to March and we get to the conference tournament, does the fact that San Diego State played Colorado State and Nevada essentially 2 months prior to this, does that affect it? Because normally they're kind of spread out. You start off with Colorado State, you go through the Mountain West, and then you flip it back, so you spread out these games. That's not going to be the case. I mean, you're going to be done with Colorado State January 4th. You might play them, March 20th? I mean, that's kind of, it's a long ways to go. Just something to think about. But I will say, obviously, it is 2020. You have to do what you have to do. These little series games, I don't think you should get used to them. This is a 1-year thing, which is fine, because I don't even think the kids probably want to play the same team twice in 3 days. It's just a little much. I can imagine the second games on a lot of these are going to be a little chippy. Especially when UNLV comes to town or we go there, however that goes. I know New Mexico, there's always something said there. But that's our wrap up on San Diego State. Anything else on the Aztecs there, Coach?
No, just continue. I don't like the spread of days in between games. The second, they have a lot to prepare for. Yeah, but it also takes away some sharpness. Um, and I just kind of want to see this team play.
Yeah.
As a local fan. So, other than that, no. There's some wonderful college basketball games on this weekend. Ooh, Iowa took one on the chin the other day.
Wow. That Big
Yeah.
Ten that we talk about on the NCAA podcast show with Raider Jim, that Big Ten is so deep. When you have Northwestern taking down teams, you got Rutgers ranked. The Big Ten is unbelievable this year. But sorry.
No, and so there's some wonderful games today. Kentucky Louisville is going to be exciting.
Big rival.
Yeah, big rival, and early hiccups for a Kentucky team, which is understandable because all they do is load up on young, fresh, immature players without a real understanding of how to play basketball. Ultra talented, and that's different from playing basketball and playing college basketball. And Coach Cal's got a really good job challenge ahead of him, and he'll get it done. They'll get it done. It might be early though against a team like Louisville. So we'll see. I just love college basketball.
Amen. Yeah.
NBA started, and I haven't. NBA started, and I barely watched the final 5 minutes of the Clippers Nuggets just because I was wondering if the Clippers were going to choke another game against the Nuggets. But then, unfortunately, I saw Kawhi take Serge Ibaka elbow. Jeez. That was
yowza. I mean, I'm a hockey fan. I was watching the World Juniors last night, and I was like, man, that's more blood from Kawhi than I saw all day today. But echo what you say about the college basketball. Really, really fun Saturdays, and we're getting into the conference side of things. So this is a little more set in stone. Yeah. These games might not go off the day you expect them to, but most of these games will get rescheduled at some point. So that's kind of cool. At least, like I said, we might have to wait an extra week or two, but you do expect that a lot of these games are going to go off. The final thing, of course, we always do on this podcast is we go through our unanimous picks, and my goodness, folks, we have plenty to get to today. I don't know if the podcast or video will get out in time for these Saturday games, but I'm going to do them for you anyway, just in case.
Yeah.
First one is Detroit, Tampa Bay. We like the over 54. We like Arizona -5 against the Niners and under 49 in that game. We also like the Dolphins and Raiders to go over 47.5. Over 47.5 on Dolphins Raiders. Those are their Saturday games. Now moving to Sundays, we have Charger Broncos. We like the over 49 there. Atlanta +11 and over 53.5 against Kansas City. Washington, Carolina to stay under the 44.5. Baltimore to cover the 9.5 against the Giants. We also like that game to go over 45. The Eagles to cover the 2 against the Cowboys. We also like that game to go over 45. And Cleveland to cover the 9.5 against the Jets. Cincinnati +8 against Houston. We also like the over 46 there. Indianapolis -1.5 against Pittsburgh. Chicago -7.5 against Jacksonville. And then the Rams and Seahawks, we like that to go over 47.5. And finally, Tennessee, Green Bay, that number is a little high. We like under 56 in, I believe, that Sunday night game, but plenty of unanimous picks to get to, even if the Saturday picks don't make it out in time. Plenty of things to get to. I was looking over the spreadsheet. The only games we did not have a unanimous pick on was the first game we talked about was the Saints Vikings, and Monday night's game, whatever that was. Let me see as I pull it up. Buffalo, New England. Only 2 games without a unanimous pick. Some of these we have 2 unanimous picks on them. So use those as you wish, whether on a site, or if you don't want to put your hard-earned money, we always tell you, feel free to download Vigit, VIGIT, and join our betting league. You get 1,000 bonus coins if you use the promo code RNG20. And it's a lot of fun. It was very random. I don't know if they just pulled my name out of a hat, but they randomly gave me a bonus of 1,000 or 1,500 coins. I was like,
1,500
woo, fantastic. All right. And I had a nice little night last night.
There you go.
But yeah, make sure you join our betting league, see how you stack up with us, and of course Raider Jim as well. And best part about it, look, it doesn't cost you any hard-earned money. And you win enough and you will go get yourself an Amazon gift card if you so choose, and that turns into some hard-earned money. So can't really lose on Viget. A lot of fun. Definitely helps you, figure out how you really want to bet. Yeah, until you put that hard-earned money. So Coach Lupian, final thoughts for the 11th episode of the Two Bs on a Pod.
Yeah, before I finish up with that, just be aware, ATL was that unanimous pick, but Julio Jones is out.
Got it.
That just came across my ticker this morning. But my final thoughts, yes, I love that we're 11 episodes in. Continue to follow where we're at on YouTube, or whether on Spotify, or tweet us. We're looking for a lot of love, and we're looking to give a lot of love back, So thank you for listening. Mr. First, thank you for making time this morning, and let's get started with a day of sports on TV, right?
Amen. It is going to be a fantastic day. As a horse racing fan like myself, big day at Santa Anita. And you know what? I'm a big hockey fan. The World Junior Championship started. I still can't believe Russia beat the United States, but you know what? I've seen Rocky, and eventually we'll get our chance back. But anyways, a huge, huge day of sports. And guess what? There's 3 NFL games too, folks. So get that previous channel button working. You're going to need to be working overtime today. And thank you, Coach Lupian, for your time today. Thank you all for listening. And we won't be back. We will be back on, I believe we'll figure that out, whether it's New Year's Day or the day after. We'll see how our hangovers do there. But at least on my side, speaking for myself, we will be back with you at some point next week. But we all do wish you a happy new year. Hopefully 2020 has to be better. I'm sorry. Well, 2021 has to be better. Moving on forward and upward, and ready to take Off the Bench podcast into the new year, 2021. I think it's going to be our year. So keep listening, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. And it's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We will talk to you next week. Have a happy new year.